Okay. Hel- Hello, Sean and Steve. We're going to talk about your documentary, Satan Wants You, today. And I think the best place to start would be for you guys to tell people about the book Michelle Remembers.
Oh, Michelle Remembers. I mean, it's a well-known book for a lot of different reasons. Basically, I mean, it was published in 1980. So it's this book by a young patient named Michelle Smith, and her psychiatrist, Dr. Lawrence Larry Pazder. It's set in Victoria, so a small Canadian city on the West Coast. And basically, the book follows 2 years of therapy sessions between Michelle and Larry, which they record. And what happens is that Michelle sees Larry about a miscarriage and a bad dream that she's had. And what starts to happen over the therapy sessions over the next few months is she begins remembering these memories of this horrific abuse that happened when she was a child. So, and not just any abuse, but satanic abuse. So this is like her parents are members of a satanic cult. She's given to the cult. They kill animals. They sacrifice babies. They give her away to
lots
Satan.
of babies.
Lots of babies.
Like,
There were a lot of, babies out of candles and stuff. Candles out of babies.
Baby wax.
Baby wax. That's right. Oh my God.
It's one of my favorite things in the world.
It's funny because it's fake. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
That's what we loved about it. It's like literally, we knew that we would have a lot of creative license with the film because it's all completely fabricated. There's no way it could be true.
Yeah, like they're talking about like thousands of babies are gone and they're all like being absorbed into this vast satanic cults that no one is aware of except for, these people who are just a little unhinged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Piles of babies. It's not just any. It's like lots of babies,
And they're eating them and they're burning them. It's insane.
Yeah. It can't just be regular people. It's got to be babies.
Of course, right?
As dramatic as possible. Okay, so how long have you guys been aware of this satanic panic, as they call it?
I mean, for me, this story, this is a story from my childhood. I grew up in the same city as Michelle and Larry, where Michelle Remembers is set and written. It was everywhere in my city. And a really weird thing for me, my Auntie Cindy trained under Larry when she was completing her nursing degree. So there's like layers of the story, right?
Yeah.
and it was weird, growing up there, I had no idea until we started making this film that this is not just like a little small town story. It's millions and millions and millions of people were affected by this.
Wow. Okay. And could you educate people what Satanists are actually about? American Satanists.
I think Blanche does a really good job in the film. Satanists celebrate every part of human nature. Where religion is always about these high standards that you kind of need to, especially Christianity, that you need to stick to,
and what you shouldn't do.
Yeah, right. And their Satanism is we're indulging creatures, we are crafty, we are liars, and they want to celebrate all of those elements as opposed to only trying to hold yourself to this incredibly high standard.
I mean, Blanche, so one of our subjects in the film is a former high priestess of the Church of Satan, the original Church of Satan. She says Satanism is a celebration. Yeah. I thought that was a celebration of being alive, a celebration of being human.
Yeah, I mean, people will conjure up an image that it's the worst sin in the world because it's it's all about Satan, hail Satan. We a lot of people will associate very maximum freakness over it, when it is essentially just sort of a harmless group of libertine people who may or may not be goofy. However, that's not really important. They're not out there with the baby wax, right?
They're definitely not. No. Nobody is.
There's one woman in Canada who is, and you can meet her in the film. She has
Louise Edwards.
She has all the baby wax.
Okay. So for these people who are invested in the satanic panic, which sort of still goes on today, we'll get to that in a bit. But when you were, when you guys went about making this, and now that you're doing press for it, go to South by Southwest, do you guys face any hostility from people?
Not yet.
Not yet. I guess you have that to look forward to.
Yeah, We've talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
We've wondered, especially with like the climate of what we're in today, are people going to come towards us and call? Sean and I are both gay, and so like, does that also like come into play? And we've talked about that. We're curious.
Well, then you look at things that just happened recently. I mean, you look at Rihanna at the Super Bowl,
Sam Smith
at the Grammys, and that performance. Like, this is not a 40-year-old story. This is happening again and again and again and again, over and over and over again.
It's the easiest scapegoat.
Geez. I actually know some people who are into this stuff, into the occult, like a fear mongering, I would say. And I think if they were talking to you right now, they would say you have demons in you that you're just unaware of.
They are
straight face.
I'm aware of them.
Yeah.
But they would. You're absolutely right. They 100% would. And I think it's the easiest way for a human to excuse the shitty things that they have about themselves. It's
and this comes back to the Church of Satan line, a celebration of differences instead of actually, using Satanism to tar and feather people who are different. And this is, as gay men, when we were researching this, you'd be surprised in the middle of the 80s how many of the people accused during the daycare trials and accused of being Satanists and dragged into court were actually queer. Like it's, and among other things, single mothers, women who are divorced. It's just like the list goes on and on. If you're a little bit different, you're a Satanist.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know how you change that thinking.
I don't know either, really. Did you want to make this documentary in part because of sort of occultist fear mongering going on today? There's a bit of a direction of that with your, QAnon people and believers in Pizzagate or because like you conflate things, right? Like you do have like Epstein Island, but then this idea that it's happening like all the time at every level of everything, and that there's like subliminal messages like reinforcing it. Yeah.
That was, when we first started like actually getting into like the Michelle Remember side of it, and listening to how people were reacting to it, especially in the media. And then we were seeing how it was being represented today. That was a big draw. We were like, oh my God, it's happening again. And we had no idea.
And just, like for us too, in an earlier version of this film, we were actually planning on talking to the pizzeria owner in Washington, D.C. and sort of have a more direct connection between that before we got deeper into Michelle Remembers and realized, no, this is a story by itself. That might be a future film for another day. But to see this repeat, like 40 years later, it's cyclical. This is one of the takeaways that we want people to have from our film is like, it's not just this isolated incident in the 80s. This is something that has happened once. It happened again recently. It will happen again in the future, guaranteed.
People who are younger than us, like younger millennials and Gen Zers who we've tested the film with, they were like shocked. They had no idea. They were like, I did not know that it was this extensive and this big and like all over TV.
God, do you think there's more fear about Satanism today or back then?
Back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think religion was like much more in throughout the culture. I think when people were attending church, it was a bigger part. I don't think the media landscape was as huge. The internet wasn't available.
And you have to like remember, like with Michelle, the reason why we wanted to do this, Michelle Remembers as a book was actually used by law enforcement and used by social workers to actually say, this is proof this is happening. Children are being stolen and sacrificed. Use this book here are the signs in the book that you need to use to find these people, to prosecute them, arrest them, and then take them to trial, which happened not just like once or twice in the 80s and 90s. It was like thousands of people were affected by this, and then millions of people experienced the Satanic Panic. Like it is just crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
And hope that it never gets that bad again.
Especially for the heavy metal people too.
Yep. You listen to heavy metal, you were a Satanist.
Yeah. They're just having fun. Like it's just extreme, and it's, you do one of these. I wouldn't look into it much further than, just having a fun, outrageous time. But no, they're going to conflate that with like sort of some deeper message going down this path of
Yeah.
you know, the baby wax.
Baby wax.
I keep going back to it because it's so crazy.
It is insane. It's like literally one of my favorite parts of the movie. One of the during production, we had spoken to a guy that lived in Jamestown, and he was a rocker, and they had this tiny Jamestown, New York, and they had this tiny like club that they would go to, and it was everybody was down there listening to heavy metal. They were in mosh pits. And the surrounding areas in the outskirts were super religious people, and they would all kind of like migrate in to look at this club, and they would see these people having these mosh pits, and they would look at it and they were like, "This is satanic. This is what it's all about."
And undercover people from the churches to record them skateboarding inside this old building in Jamestown, and all built up to a Halloween where they marched through town with torches trying to find the Satanist skateboarders. Like it's
convinced that a blonde-haired, blue-eyed virgin was going to be stolen and sacrificed. Like it was wild shit. And just to know, like from his side, they were just partying and they loved it because they were like feeding on it, right? They were like, "Oh, these guys think we're nuts," but they're like, "We're just having a good time." It was so interesting to chat with him.
And I think of that, like one of the journalists who appear in our film who are like, you know, everyone treats this, and she told this to us off camera. She was like, people your age, you think this is a big joke and you laugh at it, but it's dead serious, right? When it was happening in the 80s and 90s, if you find yourself accused of this stuff, how do you defend yourself against something
completely made up?
I know I've been accused of having demons in me by people who are really serious, and if you tell them you think they're being goofy, they're gonna say you're being goofy, and I don't have to listen to you because you have a demon in you. And what was the other line that I remember? The Catholic priests who were pedophiles. They were the cop was saying that's just a Satanist ploy to destroy the church within. There's nothing you can say. It's all built up. It's fully three-dimensionally constructed.
Yeah, they have their story start to finish, and anything that you present as a roadblock, they will just like scoot right around it, and they already have the answer. It's crazy to see.
I personally enjoyed the Conjuring movies, but it does like feed into that like idea
for sure
that this is real.
Yeah. I mean, there was like during the time when the book was written, like The Exorcist was huge, Rosemary's Baby was out. There was a lot of like religious horror in the culture, and like we think that that's where she borrowed like a lot of the ideas from that actually made it into the book.
Interesting. So are you guys excited that this is going to be playing at South by Southwest?
Yes.
Oh my God.
We can't wait.
Dream come true.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect festival for the film. And we are so stoked.
And already like the sort of buzz around that we've been getting since they made the announcement a few weeks ago. It's just to see that reaction. There's no trailer, there's no nothing about the film, and people are, what is this?
Yeah.
It's a good title.
Yeah, you came up with it like early on in the process. I think like for our development,
well, it's like put it from Michelle's perspective. Satan, you know, if you're Michelle, that's the title, right?
Yeah, but as soon as like through development, that's what the working title was, and then we would send out like emails when we were pitching it, and we were like, "Satan wants you to read this pitch," and it was instant. We were like, "We need to keep this title for sure."
Oh, good stuff. Well, Sean and Steve, thanks so much for your time. I really thoroughly enjoyed this documentary. Lots of luck for you guys. Do you have a final a kernel of wisdom you want to end with?
Fuck.
Maybe just don't be a Satanist, or relax.
Baby wax is real.
All right, we'll leave it there. Beautiful. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.